was born in San Francisco General Hospital, the youngest of 5 kids. I have 2 older brothers, 2 older sisters. When I was still a baby, my parents relocated us to East Oakland. So I was born in San Francisco, raised in East Oakland. One thing that I took for granted growing up, I didn't realize how fortunate I was to grow up in a home with both of my parents, both of my biological parents. Growing up as a child and as an adolescent, that was all I knew. Was so very fortunate to have grown up with both my dad and my mom, all 4 of my siblings living under the same roof. As you know, there's so many different living situations that can play out. And we don't choose family. So I'm just grateful that I grew up in my environment that I did. I also grew up in a home of faith. My dad is a minister and former senior pastor. My mom is a devout Christian. Because I grew up in a household of 7, at times we had more than 7 when we had extended family living with us at points in times growing up. But the sense of being together, the sense of having stability, my parents still lived in the same home that I was raised in. So lots of stability, which I think is important for, if possible, growing up, being able to live in the same home and the same community. And I grew up in the inner city of East Oakland. So lots of negative influences, similar to West Fresno or any other city with influences like drugs and alcohol and marijuana. And but the game changer for me was, I think, coming from a 2-parent home, having my dad in my life, being raised in a Christian home, and that calls to me as an inner city kid to make my decision to die for my faith. Because one of the things about growing up in the hood or in the streets is there's a loyalty that comes with your block, your city, the part of neighborhood that you're from. So in my case, I grew up in East Oakland, 98th Avenue. And one lesson I got was, you got to choose. You got to decide who you want to represent. And if you're going to live something worth dying for, what are you going to die for? So at age 13, I decided that it will be my faith in Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. I discovered that I was a good athlete growing up, and I went to King Estates Junior High School in Oakland. And it was myself, Gino Vitale, and I had some teammates I played basketball with, and flag football. Gino Vitale, Tamarcus Tyson, Cedric Hurst. We were all buddies, and we were all good athletes. And one decision that I made that changed my life was, long story short, I discovered that about an athletic scholarship, that it was possible to maybe get an athletic scholarship. You may be familiar with the Netflix show called Last Chance U. One of the most recent seasons featured John Bean. John Bean, when I was a kid growing up in Oakland, he was the head coach at Skyline High School, where I went. And I heard that if you wanted to get a scholarship to college, you go to Skyline and play football. So that's how I ended up going to Skyline High School to play football. And that's one relationship that changed my life. John Beam, Coach Beam is what I call him. He he was very intentional about not only producing great athletes, but placing a strong emphasis on academics and instilling in the hope and in the possibility of getting a scholarship if you had the talent and the grades. My friends all went to Fremont High School. So that caused me and my friends to become rivals in terms of athletics. So at the time, that was a big decision for me and a hard one to make, but I'm grateful that I made it. I was recruited by Andy Ludwig. Andy Ludwig at the time was the offensive coordinator at Fresno State, and he was responsible for recruiting the Bay Area. And that's how I met Pat Hill, who I played for at Fresno State from 2000 through 2005. So I played at Fresno State. I was recruited as a middle linebacker. And my junior year, I converted to fullback. And I played from 2000 through 2000. I redshirted my first year. And then I was on travel squad the next 4 years. So from 2000 through 2005, I was a student athlete at Fresno State. After my career ended, I stayed involved with the program as the football team's chaplain from 2005 to 2012. When I think about Pat Hill, John Beam, other coaches in my life, Dan Brown, who passed away of cancer, some of my childhood coaches like Stanley Cornelius, some of the most influential people in my life, outside of my parents, are coaches. I've had several coaches who have pushed me really hard, held me accountable, given me structure, accountability. John Baxter was a special teams coach at Fresno State when I played there, and he had a program called, or he has a program still called Academic Game Plan, where you learn about time management and other life skills and leadership skills. So I can talk for hours upon hours about how important coaches are and how influential coaches have been in my life. And I really believe that coaches are some of the most influential people in our culture today. To whom much is given, much is required. A lot's been given to me. I'm so grateful for all the Bulldog Foundation at Fresno State, the Quarterback Club at Fresno State, all the individuals who support Fresno State athletics that pay for student athlete scholarships. So now, as a 39-year-old alumni of Fresno State, it's important for me to give back to Club Red, which is the alumni at Fresno State. One of my goals is to pay for a scholarship at Fresno State, just as a sense of gratitude for having had a scholarship at Fresno State. I'm involved with bringing broken neighborhoods back to life. It's an organization here in Fresno that tries to improve the relationship between law enforcement. They have a community policing model here in Fresno. And there's faith-based organizations and nonprofits who are involved with bringing broken neighborhoods back to life. I'm involved with Black Men Table Talk, which has been an incredible experience to be able to come together with other Black men, other Black professionals who are hurting, who are grieving, who are seeking answers. I get to benefit personally from my self-care, but there are times when I get to invest in other people in the group who might need some encouragement from me. I support different organizations financially, like the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I serve on the board of directors for the Way Ministry, John 14:6. I'm here in Fresno as a way to give back to vulnerable families and individuals in the Fresno area as well. I attend a local church that's very community-minded and missions-minded. So one thing I've learned in my experience as an athlete is there's rewards and benefits that come along with competition and hard work and taking risk and being a quote-unquote winner. But if you're not doing anything to help anybody else or advance anybody else, support and advocate for others, one principle from athletics is doing what's best for the team, and life is a team sport. So I definitely acknowledge my responsibility to be thinking about, praying about what's best for the community, what's best for the world, and how can I contribute to being a solution to different problems that we have in our society. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, LMFT, and I work in private practice doing business as Central Valley Christian Counseling Services. Central Valley Christian Counseling Services is a telepractice. It's 100% online. And I've been in private practice for about a year now. This morning, matter of fact, I was having a session with a client, and I began to talk to him about John Wooden. John Wooden is a legendary basketball coach at UCLA. He's now passed away, but John Wooden has a pyramid of success. So that's one example of where, as a student of leadership and different coaches who are successful, I was able to share this client in a therapeutic setting the definition of success, according to John Wooden, which is success is the peace of mind that comes from the self-satisfaction in knowing that you did your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. I integrate some of my clients either are athletes or identify with athletics. So a lot of my counseling interventions in terms of building rapport with my clients, having a relationship and connecting with them with examples that bring life to them and that they relate to. I talk about sports all the time. One thing I think is important for young people is whether it's athletics or being in the band, being in a chess club, I would recommend every young person in middle school, high school, college, to get involved in some type of extra curricular activity. And the more involved a child or youth gets in extracurricular activities, it's a gateway for relationship, for community. It's a way to discover your strengths, your limitations, to be affirmed, to have positive influences. And that's one of the takeaways for me, is that in my case, I was an athlete. And in one sense, you can say that the athletics saved my life, because if I wasn't going to practice, because I was going to practice and playing in games, and I was being affirmed by coaches and teammates, and I was being held accountable, I was less likely to be out on the streets, hanging on the corner. Athletics was a healthy outlet. So I think that every youth should really be involved in some kind of extracurricular activities.